But here we have the Lenovo ThinkPad Z13. And it's a relatively new form factor for a Lenovo. If you think about typical ThinkPads, right here I have the 6th generation X1 Carbon. So pretty typical form factor, things that you'd be used to when thinking about a ThinkPad. There we go, got it into focus for you. So you got your ports on this side, and then you got a couple of ports, on this side and so forth. But yeah, this is what most people think of when they think of a ThinkPad. And in fact, let me open it, and yeah, we're still on the lock screen here, so that's fine. So yeah, you got your typical keyboard and everything. This is a 14-inch display. And yeah, I have been using this ThinkPad X1 Carbon for a little over a year. In fact, we're approaching 2 years, and I've enjoyed it. I've tried to sell it a few times, and there haven't been any, well, there have been a few offers on eBay, but something about that particular device just keeps me coming back for more. I want to sell it, but I honestly don't want to let it go. So in the meantime, I decided to give this particular device a try, which again is the Lenovo ThinkPad Z13. So we're not in the X line, the T's, the L's. I think that's it. Yeah. And just to give you a quick overview, which I would have done either already in the unboxing or early on in this video, but either way, too much information isn't a bad thing. We have a 13-inch display right here, as well as just a single USB-C port right here. And that's it on this side. And then over here, we have headphone combination jack, and then another USB-C port and the power button. And both of those USB-C ports are USB 4, and they are, I think the appropriate term is full service, meaning they offer, I don't like that, meaning that they offer, you can charge the device, you can send data through it and from it, of course, and you can also output a video image to a particular display. So relatively useful ports, but as you saw, there's only 2 of them, not including the headphone jack, but no USB-A, no HDMI, and it's unfortunate that those USB-A and HDMI ports are referred to as legacy ports because they are still very, very relevant in today's climate. And as I've been using this particular device for a few days, overall, it's good. There is a terabyte NVMe SSD inside. It also has a Ryzen 5 6500U, I believe, and then also 32 gigabytes of RAM. And to confirm all of that, I will have some B-roll type things, and I'm just kind of rambling now, so whatever. But yeah, I'll make sure that I have everything up on the screen so that way I can confirm exactly what I'm saying. And in terms of performance, it's good. I haven't really reviewed a laptop on this channel before, so I see what other reviewers do, and they run the benchmarks and they talk about screen brightness, how many nits it is. Then they might give you a test of the webcam and the microphone when using the webcam. And I've seen what other people do, and if you want to go see what other people do, by all means, or what other people have done, by all means, navigate to other channels because they've done a thorough job of reviewing the laptop for however long that they've been using it. And I've only had it for, like I said, a little over a week, or about a week, and I really have one complaint. And the unfortunate truth of it is my complaint is why this laptop exists. So if you remember, I briefly held up this ThinkPad X1 Carbon, and this is the 6th generation, but whether it's the 6th generation or newer, these are 14-inch monitor, 14-inch laptops. And it looks old, but even if you looked at a 10th gen X1 Carbon, it's still going to have essentially that exact same form factor. And yeah, it's the business laptop. But with these particular devices, they're trying to do something a little more modern, and I'll give it to them. It definitely does look nice. It's very sleek. The touchpad is a haptic touchpad as opposed to the traditional springboard one. So just like the MacBooks, you aren't actually pressing a button, but you tap it and there's a little haptic motor inside that gives you feedback. And yeah, of course you can click it and use it the way that you would normally use a touchpad. But that right there is one thing that they've done to modernize this machine. Also, if I were to close it, just looking at it like this, it's definitely a more modern piece of equipment. It's extremely thin and sleek. And I would say that of the laptop that I own, the only other laptop that is nearly as thin as this one is, of course, the MacBook Air that I have, which, yes, is also another extremely thin and light laptop. But the issue that I have with the laptop is the fact that even though the screen looks really good, the bezels are extremely thin and narrow. What ends up happening is you get this extremely small footprint. And even though I'm okay with the screen size, which I do think I prefer 14-inch laptops, and I'm definitely okay with the bezel sizes because, yeah, it is nice to look at that. And for the most part, you're getting nothing but the image. And when watching movies or other videos, it's an extremely nice experience. But what ends up happening when you have this type of form factor and these extremely small bezels and this relatively small screen size compared to a 14-inch laptop or larger, what I've grown to really not enjoy is how narrow or how thin this little palm rest area is. So when I'm typing, frequently my hand is halfway on the, halfway, I guess I should say halfway off of the laptop. And with all the other laptops that I have, that's just not an issue. And with the exception of my MacBook Air, all the other laptops that I have are 14-inch or have 14-inch screens. So they have a slightly bigger footprint. And I know they make a Z16, and I thought about the Z16, but that at that point is too much laptop. Now, I'll look online to see exactly what the dimensions of that are, but from my experience over the years that I've been purchasing laptops, it took me a long time to realize it because of, with the exception of ThinkPads, I feel like a lot of laptop manufacturers were producing 13 and 15 and 17-inch laptops, but not 14-inch laptops. And for a while, I had some 15-inch laptops because with those, you got the full-size keyboard along with a number pad on the side. And I believe I even had one 17-inch laptop, which of course was even bigger. And back then laptops were a lot heavier, a lot thicker. But after getting this 14-inch X1 Carbon or this 14-inch ThinkPad X1 Carbon, I don't want to use anything else besides the 14-inch. And what convinced me to buy this, one was the price. I mean, it was still pretty costly, but for a terabyte and for 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM, I believe, if not, is DDR6 out? I don't think it is. But yeah, for 32 gigs of RAM, I said, it's definitely worth a shot. And I bought it on eBay directly from Lenovo, though. Lenovo has an eBay page or eBay account, and it caught my attention. But I think I'm going to have to send it back because the palm rest just is not large enough for my hands, and the overall typing experience is not comfortable. And one thing I will say is there's another YouTuber, I forget his name, but I've watched quite a few videos of his, and his critique of this particular machine was that he felt that the trackpad was too slippery. And I've used it, and yeah, it feels like a glass trackpad. I mean, it's slick as it should be, I feel. But and I was like, that's interesting that he said that. But once I actually had one in my possession, yeah, I didn't agree with that. But what I did feel is that the sides right here are too slick. And when I'm typing, I feel like my hands are just sliding around. So yeah, it being that slick and being that small, for me, it's just an overall uncomfortable experience. And yeah, I think for that reason in particular, I'm going to have to let it go. The lack of additional quote unquote legacy ports is somewhat problematic as well. But you know, I'd have to buy a dock, and buying a dock wouldn't be that big of a deal. Not that I want to do that, but I guess I'd be open to doing it. So that way, if I did keep the machine, I could get those legacy ports back. But what I want to do is we're going to close this, and we're going to bring over some of the other machines that I have just to give you a better idea. And the reason I want to do that, and the reason that we all, of course, watch these videos, is the unfortunate reality of the situation is most devices that you want to buy aren't available in stores. So you can't just go take a look at them and type on them and do whatever to see exactly how you feel about the particular device in question. So for where I live, the main electronic stores are, of course, Best Buy and Walmart. Target has some stuff, and that's pretty much it. And if you're not looking at a MacBook Air or Pro, or I guess I should say just MacBook, and certain other Windows PCs, Windows PCs, then yeah, you're missing out on a lot. And to my knowledge, I don't think this particular device is sold in stores. So I have a few machines over here. I'm gonna bring them over to the desk, and then we'll be able to compare the sizes. So for you, if you're considering getting something this thin and light and this small, you'll be able to know, hey, is this something that I could see myself actually using? So without further ado, let's bring some of these other machines over here, and we'll get a better idea of how your hands might fit when it comes to typing on something like this. So I do apologize, and I know this isn't the best angle, but just to give you a better reference, here's how big my hand is. And I don't think I have overly large hands, but from my longest finger, which is my middle finger, down to my palm, we're looking at a little under 8 inches, or about 8 inches. In terms of width, I guess from my thumb all the way over, we're dealing with what? A little under 7 inches. So yeah, I don't think I have the biggest hands, but I would definitely say I don't have small hands. Sorry about that if you might have heard some background noise. One of the trash trucks was coming through. All right, so here we have the Z13 back in sight, and we can see the entire keyboard there. And just to give you an idea, I mean, of course, all these dimensions are available online, but right here, from the top of the machine to the bottom, we're looking at a little under 8 inches. And then if I were to place my hands on the home row right here, so ASDF, yeah, it's not unbearable, but it's not the most comfortable thing. I mean, a good portion of my hand is on the trackpad, as it should be, but there's enough where now I'm kind of just leaning off. And it's uncomfortable. And for the amount of money that I paid for this machine, I don't think it's a compromise that I'd be willing to make. I want a little more support, so maybe a little more machine to hold up some of my palm. But again, it's a comfortable keyboard, which I don't think I mentioned that before. The keyboard itself is nice, but if this portion down here were just a little further out, which then of course would require this to be taller, but if this were an actual 14-inch machine as opposed to a 13-inch machine, we probably could have accommodated for a little more room down here. So again, this is the Z13, and for comparison, let's bring on the X1 Carbon. Okay, so if you're looking at the the camera right now, or looking at the screen right now, what I have is the Z13 sitting on top of my X1 Carbon. Now, yes, I mean, you can't see, but trust me, the bezels are a little bit bigger. So that's definitely aiding into some of the top hinge being a little bit larger. But as I mentioned before, the X1 Carbon is a 14-inch machine. And with that additional screen size, you get a overall bigger footprint. And what ends up happening is, yes, I have the Z13 pushed all the way back up against the screen of the X1 Carbon, and you can see there's that little bit more of space down here where my hands are able to rest when typing, so they're not just hanging over the edge. So let me remove the Z13 And here we go. So right now, my hand is fully supported. It's not, when I was typing on the Z13 with my fingers on the home row, the very base of my palms were hitting the desk right here. But on this X1 Carbon, they're fully off the desk and extremely comfortable. And in fact, this is one of the machines that I just absolutely love to type on. And yes, the keyboard is good, as I mentioned on the Z13, and it's absolutely excellent here on the X1 Carbon. But the additional screen allows for this little palm rest to be just a little bit taller. So this is the 6th generation X1 Carbon, ThinkPad X1 Carbon, 14-inch display. And just to give you one more reference, pushing the Z13 or placing it on top and pushing it all the way back, you get just a little bit more space down here that allows you to type just a little more comfortably, at least from my perspective. And you might not be able to tell what this is, although I think their design language is becoming easily recognizable. This is the 14-inch MacBook Pro. So we got our keyboard up here, and of course our palm rest down here with this ginormous trackpad. And if I were to place the ThinkPad Z13 on top of the, let me push it all the way back, you can clearly see there's way more space down here for my palms to rest when typing. So again, if I'm typing on the Z13 right now, my hands are essentially hitting the palm rest of the MacBook Pro that's sitting underneath of it. So hands are on the home row. If I wanted to elevate them, I could, but that's very uncomfortable. So you kind of just let them rest. But with the Z13, yeah, my hands are kind of leaning off the edge. So just to look here at the MacBook, yeah, my hands are fully supported with the palm rest. There is no space under, well, there's space, but it is not hitting the desk at all because this palm rest is wider and gives your hands more space. So extremely comfortable to type on this. And yes, this is a 14-inch laptop, so you are given that additional space. But I feel that they should not have made a Z13. They should have made a Z14. And the reason they probably didn't do that, which I'll go over that in another video because I am going to probably rant about that because I am trying to find another 14-inch laptop. But I feel they didn't make a Z14 is because they didn't want it being a direct competitor to their other ThinkPads. So the X1 Carbon, the T14, and yes, there are other larger laptops, but in terms of 13-inch screens, I know there's an L13 and I think there's an X13, neither of which, well, I know the X13 isn't super popular, but the L13, it's the entry-level business laptop. And here's one more machine, and at this point, you probably have got the point. 14-inch laptops are just going to give you more space. So this is a Dell 3470. I recorded myself opening this machine a couple weeks ago to install some RAM and SSD. But yes, putting the Z13 on top of this Dell 3470, which is a 14-inch laptop, you can see that the palm rest is not only wider, but obviously taller too to accommodate that larger screen size. So typing on the Z13, my hands are kind of falling off the bottom here, but you can see that yes, the palm rest of the 3470 is a little wider. And just to type directly on here, yeah, my palms are fully supported. They are not falling off onto the desk. And I think maybe what I'll try to do is maybe get some B-roll or something from the side so you can actually see, because I think that would actually be pretty cool. But 14-inch laptops are the way to go. And I'll say, well, I'm recording, if this doesn't work, then I'll just edit it out. But here we have the 13-inch MacBook Air. So a 13-inch screen, but with relatively chunky bezels. So the overall form factor isn't as small as this Z13, but even with another 13-inch screen that has slightly wider bezels, you still get that additional palm rest area. So not falling off the laptop like I would with the Z13. Boom, palms are perfectly supported, and this feels oh so comfortable. I tell you that, it feels absolutely comfortable. So overall, the Z13 is a pretty good machine, but yeah, it's just not a comfortable thing to type on if you have relatively large hands. And I don't even think my hands are that large, but I measured them earlier on in the video, so you saw how big they were. But yeah, I think I'm going to have to return this one. I was hopeful that it was going to be a suitable replacement for my X1 Carbon, and maybe I'll just look at getting a newer X1 Carbon, but this just looks so nice and so sleek. But yeah, I need that little bit of additional space here at the bottom of the trackpad.